What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, it is my Dying Light the Beast review. This came out just a few weeks ago as of recording this video, and finally made my way through the game, finished it, and have a lot to say about it. So without further ado, no hesitation, let's dive in. Before we start talking about Dying Light the Beast, I want to give you my background with the Dying Light series, so you know where I'm coming from with some of my opinions. That way you can know if I've played the Dying Light games or if I haven't, and you can kind of get a feel for where I'm coming from, my experience with the franchise. So I have played both games in the franchise. I was a little late to Dying Light 1 when it came out in 2015. I don't remember when I first played it, but it was a couple years after that. I didn't really get into it until I guess not past its prime, because Dying Light 1 had a very long prime and it's still a very popular game. The whole series, I think, is very underrated in terms of how popular and how much people really enjoyed Dying Light. But Dying Light 1 I got to a few years late, but really enjoyed, coming off of Dead Island, Techland being the developers. I really enjoyed the first Dead Island. I was a fan of it. There were problems with it, but overall I did like Dead Island. Dead Island Riptide I played through as well. But I think them transitioning to Dying Light, adding in the parkour to it, but they still have that great zombies gameplay at its core. It was a great move. Dying Light 1 had great gameplay, had a lot of content. It got supported for many years, and I'm sure it's probably still being supported somewhat even in 2025. Techland's done a really good job with Dying Light 1 and 2 of supporting it, and I have no doubt that they'll do that with the Beast as well. So Dying Light 1 I really enjoyed. The story was whatever, but when it comes to Dying Light, I'm really coming for great gameplay and atmosphere, visuals. The parkour needs to be really smooth, feel great to maneuver around. Dying Light 1 delivered that, even though the story was there, it was solid, but nothing crazy. Dying Light 2, I did play through that, was very excited for that to come out in 2022, and I think I bought it day one, and for the most part I thought it was a pretty solid game. Gameplay wise, I remember back at launch I liked the gameplay. The story was one thing that I did not like at all. It wasn't like with Dying Light 1 where that story was there. There were some solid characters, solid moments, but it wasn't like offensive in any way. But Dying Light 2's story was not good, so that kind of dragged it down a little bit for me. But the gameplay, from what I remember, was very good. I did go back to it a couple months ago, and for some reason it just didn't feel like it held up all that well, and I don't know. I didn't play for that long, but from what I remember, Dying Light 2's gameplay was pretty good when it came out, and obviously they added a lot of content after the fact. So coming into Dying Light the Beast, I was excited for it, knowing that they took Dying Light 2 and they were making this a DLC, but then decided to spin it into a whole game. It was a little worrying to me to see how they were going to do that, because usually when you hear that, it ends up being a lot of kind of filler content. It's not going to be a very great game and won't be able to stand alone by itself. But what I will say about Dying Light the Beast is, very quickly I realized that wasn't a worry after playing a couple hours of it, and Dying Light the Beast is a very good standalone Dying Light game. So all that background out of the way, let's get into the gameplay of Dying Light the Beast. Talking about gameplay with the Dying Light game, I think, is the most important part of it. You want the gameplay in a Dying Light to feel very smooth alongside the parkour. The parkour is the biggest selling point, I believe, of Dying Light, is being able to run around in this open world with the freedom to free flow parkour wherever you want to go, and the map needs to be designed in a way that it allows you to do that freely, without any kind of hassle or anything thrown in your way. And I think Dying Light the Beast does that very well. It's a smaller map compared to a Dying Light or Dying Light 2. I don't remember how big Dying Light's map was, but I know Dying Light 2 had a very big map. This is a more smaller, condensed map, but they're able to fill it up with a lot of parkour moments like in the old town, which is like the main kind of city, but there's also the involvement of the woods, and I think that's a really cool idea, and it's done very well where you kind of parkour through the natural environments, and there's also smaller little towns on the outskirts of the map. And I really enjoyed the way that the map was designed in Dying Light the Beast, being able to cut through buildings that are, you know, a little darker. There might be some zombies inside, but you're able to cut through buildings to make your path shorter. There's even poles that you can grab onto, and I don't remember if this was a thing in Dying Light 1 or 2. There's poles that you can grab onto, and they'll fall down to kind of make that platform for you to get across maybe a large gap. And there's a lot of cool new ideas starting in there, but there's a lot of the same that we've seen before. You know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And the Dying Light gameplay is great, and the combat again feels really, really good. The gore in Dying Light the Beast is up there with the only other game I can think of that's got great zombie gore is Dead Island 2. And I don't know if it quite reaches that level, because Dead Island 2 had some really, really good gore. Very detailed. I mean, if you haven't seen Dead Island 2, there's videos on YouTube of clips combined together to create a video of just gory moments in Dead Island 2. And Dying Light the Beast gets pretty close to it. The detail in how the zombies get hit, and even the dismemberment, and also the detail of weapons breaking as you use them being brought back. I don't know if that was a thing in Dying Light 2, but I think it was in Dying Light 1. That's also a really cool detail. But the gameplay feels great. You get a bunch of different weapons to mess with, coming from baseball bats to brass knuckles, swords, hammers, axes. Anything that you think you would see in a Dying Light game, you'll see here. And the dismemberment and gore show that off. You'll see different levels of gore from using a baseball bat, a blunt weapon versus a bladed weapon, and it's done very, very well. And the impact of the combat feels so good. The sound design feels great. Seeing the zombies move whichever way you hit them, it's done very well. Super satisfying. You have your standard attack, but then you have a dodge that you can use. You can do a drop kick. That's very, very famous, I think, in a Dying Light game for the amount of ragdoll that you can use on the zombies. Everything that you would expect in a Dying Light game is here, and it's done very, very well in terms of the gameplay. I wasn't coming in expecting anything bad, but it's exactly what I expected, and I had a lot of fun with the gameplay. Running around doing different parkour moves. What's cool is that because you're the protagonist from the first game, Kyle Crane, you come into the game and you don't have to relearn all of these pretty basic parkour movements that you've already learned before. It kind of throws you in expecting you to already know how most of the basic parkour mechanics work, and then it adds in new ones as you progress, as you level up, which we'll talk about in a second with the progression. That's a cool thing that I thought was done very well. You don't have to relearn all these basic parkour mechanics just because you start a new game. Kyle Crane, as a character, already knows those mechanics and those moves, so is able to use them off rip, and you can add new ones to your repertoire as you go on. Dying Light the Beast, gameplay wise, parkour wise, feels great to move around, feels great to hit zombies, even fighting human enemies feels great. Gunplay also feels really, really good. At first I was kind of iffy on how it felt, but it might have been because I'm on keyboard and mouse, and I'm not very good at aiming on keyboard and mouse, so that's a skill issue on my part, but it feels really, really good. You get a pretty good amount of variety with the guns as well, and hitting a headshot on a human enemy, just one shot to the head, and seeing basically their head explode, and the way that that's detailed looks so good. I got a couple of clips from my playthrough of Dying Light the Beast and moments that I thought really showed off the gameplay and the detail and the gore very, very well. So gameplay and parkour as a whole done very, very well in Dying Light the Beast.
Hostile has a gun!
A couple more things I wanted to touch on when it comes to the gameplay that I kind of forgot about was enemy variety, because I think there's a lot of good enemy variety in this game. In the past, you've had your standard zombies, but you've also had the virals, which are like these faster infected that are still kind of, you can still see there's some human in them, so sometimes you'll see when you hit them they kind of bounce back and they kind of transform back into the human form for a second. You can hear their original voice pop out and they, you know, scream help me or get away, stuff like that. Really cool. Dying Light 1 did it. I think Dying Light 2 did it as well. I'm not entirely sure if that was something that they took away, but the virals are really cool. I'm pretty sure that's what they're called. You have your volatiles, which is another thing about this game, as nighttime is back to being super terrifying and intense. There's the nighttime chases in this game. They're on a different level. They are very terrifying. Sneaking through the night to be able to, you know, maybe there's some stuff you have to do quest-wise that only can be done at night. There's also the risk and reward of it's dangerous, more dangerous at night, but you also get a 2x multiplier to your XP. So if you want to get some XP going and building up a lot faster, you try to do some stuff at night in the dark zones where all of the buildings that you can go into and loot out of, they kind of empty out more at night, so they're a lot easier to access, but you do still have to sneak around and avoid the volatiles, who are terrifying. They're fast, aggressive, and not an enemy that you want to mess with at all. There's some other enemies that I'm not entirely sure of the exact name of, but like it's like the bloaters or the suiciders, the ones that if you get really close to them they'll blow up, or if you hit them once they'll blow up, can do damage to enemies around them, which is pretty cool. A new enemy, I think, for the franchise that was really cool, and I'm not even sure what the name of it was, but it was this like, I don't know how to even explain it. It was this really fast enemy that would kind of bounce around and can get on top of enemies and bounce off of them to jump onto you, and it's this really creepy, like, long-armed girl. I don't know what they're called, I have no idea, but they were a really cool enemy to fight. And the boss fights were something that I didn't expect, and they were pretty solid. I think most of them were more, I think the way that the boss fights were, for the most part, having zombies be a part of it and kind of having additional enemies, you know, to keep things spiced up, I guess. But I kind of wish there were some boss fights that were just the boss enemy and no additional zombies to focus on, so it was just you against that one boss enemy. But the boss fights are pretty solid as you go through the game. We'll talk about it more with the story, but you'll fight these chimeras. There's different types of chimeras that you'll come into, and they have different movesets, and they'll almost end up being completely new enemies that you'll run into a lot more, which is pretty cool. Chimeras were really cool to fight. The boss fights were something I wasn't really expecting going into this game, but were pretty solid. Wanted to talk about enemy variety really quick. Talk about nighttime with the volatiles. That was a really great experience. Again, they brought that back from the first two games, and they killed it with atmosphere, the tension. Great job there. Overall, gameplay is pretty great in Dying Light the Beast. I had a lot of fun with it and all the different aspects. Now let's quickly talk about progression. This is a part of the game that I wasn't too big of a fan of, I guess. You can tell by looking at the skill tree that this is definitely a smaller, more condensed Dying Light game, which is not a bad thing overall. But when it comes to the skill tree, you have 4 different branches with not a lot of skills. Maybe each branch has somewhere around 10 skills, I want to say, about. So you have your 3 main branches, which go into being able to craft. There's a crafting kind of branch where you can craft grenade launchers, saw blade launchers, different equipment. There is the parkour skill branch, and then the combat skill branch, and then the new kind of gameplay mechanic, which I didn't even talk about for some reason in the gameplay part of it, which I'll talk about now, is the beast. You are able to turn into the beast, and that does have story. It comes with the story, and you'll understand why based on the story. But the beast mode itself is a pretty cool idea, turning into this basically unstoppable force that's just ripping through zombies. You're hard to take down, you're doing a lot of damage. At first, it is a skill that the bar fills up and you don't have any control of whenever you use it, and it just kind of pops and you use it whenever the bar fills up. But as you progress, you get more skill points. You're able to choose when you use it, and you get some different skills with it. Like you might get a slam ability or a kind of charge and ram through enemies ability. The skills with the beast are pretty solid. The beast mode itself is pretty solid. I do kind of wish it was utilized a little bit more and it was more part of the game, because it fills up pretty quick, but it also gets exhausted pretty quick. I know it's going to be hard for the developers to find that balance, so it's not being used too much and is really kind of breaking the game. So that's something that a lot of us know with Techland. They're going to balance it out. They're going to, tweak some things and find that sweet spot that a lot of the community is a fan of. But the skill points that you get, you level up. The max rank is 15. I was able to hit that. We'll talk more about playtime in a little bit when we get to story and how long it took to finish the game. But max rank is 15, and as you get there, you'll end up being able to unlock all of the main skills and the beast skills. The beast skills you get through the main story, so you don't even have to worry about doing any kind of side content. You'll end up getting all of the beast skills, the beast points, just from playing through the main story, and by the end, you'll have taken down all the chimeras to be able to max out that skill tree. And my really issue, I guess, with the progression is that since it is a smaller, more condensed Dying Light game, the skills just aren't really all that interesting. There wasn't any skills that jumped out to me and that were really cool. There's a camouflage ability that you're able to take the guts of the zombies, camouflage yourself, and stay hidden until you attack again, and there's a little bit of a timer on that. The skills weren't that interesting. There's some decently cool ones in there, but to me, kind of the weakest part of the game was what the skills were. I mean, it did feel like I was getting stronger somewhat, getting new abilities, but I just think that they could have been more interesting with what was there. And there's not a lot of skills there. And progression did feel pretty good, though. I think going from level 1 to level 15, it did feel great to do that. Running around, killing enemies, but really getting the main bulk of XP from doing quests in main quest. So the progression itself felt good, but I think the skills didn't really feel all that great and were not all that interesting. So progression is a bit mixed for me. I think the progression itself from level 1 to 15 felt pretty good, but I think the skills are the main issue I have with the game. They just didn't feel all that interesting and unique, I suppose, compared to like a Dying Light 1, where I remember that game having a lot of skills. Maybe it's something that they can tweak and add to as the game goes on and the life cycle continues, but for right now, that's kind of where I'm at with it. So progression is a decently mixed bag, but it's got good and bad in there as well. Open world. What is there to do in the open world of Dying Light the Beast? So when you're not doing the main story and following the main quest line, you do have side quests that you can go and do like every other Dying Light game. And surprising to me, the side quests in this game are actually very, very good. I was coming and expecting, some pretty solid side quests, but, pretty kind of, basic, gets the job done, some cool ideas here and there, but there were some really cool side quests in this game that have you doing a lot of different things and meeting a lot of different people and exploring a lot of the world and hitting on a lot of really cool, unique ideas in this world and what could be a zombie apocalypse, the ideas that could happen. Like, I'll just say, for example, one side quest that I went on saw two people that were in a relationship, and they were trying to, let's say, without spoiling it, make a decision that would benefit them in the future for a certain reason. And you kind of see what the thought process is behind that with the characters that you meet. And the characters in this game, the side characters, are pretty solid. I didn't really have any problems with anybody. No one really stuck out, but they were all pretty solid and, decently interesting to talk to. But I'd say side characters were solid, but the side quests were really, really interesting, and I liked them a lot. But there's also a couple of different side activities you can go and do. You have the dark zones, which you can tackle during the day, but there's a lot more infected inside of these dark zones. But this is kind of your risk reward, where you can go in there and scavenge for supplies and maybe get some gear as well. And that's not something I really talked about as in the gameplay part of it, which I also forgot. Not too big of a fan of the gear system. I didn't really think it added a whole lot to it. I remember in Dying Light 2 it had a very strong presence, but in this game it just kind of felt like it was there, but it didn't really need to be there. I don't know. I wasn't really too big of a fan of the gear system. Kind of going on a side tangent about that because I forgot to talk about it. But getting back to the open world, dark zones are able to go and do risk reward. If you want to go get some loot during the day, you can. You get some pretty good things, and there's some tension in there as well with not trying to attract and make yourself known to all the zombies. You want to get in, get out very quietly and do it easily. There's also the screamer enemy, which I never talked about. That was a really cool idea. They look really cool with the character design, enemy design. They looked really cool, like in a straitjacket, and when they saw you they would just belt out this terrifying and gross scream. You'd want to take care of them as soon as possible. But dark zones are one thing that you can do. There are safe spots that you can go and find to be able to get around the map, and they are basically your safe zone for if you're out at night and you get chased by volatiles. You can go to these areas and the UV lights will stop the volatiles. Those are basically helpful at night, and they give you a place to rest. You also have the substations, which they kind of, they give you XP and they give you some loot, but that's kind of all they do. There's not really any kind of story purpose or anything like that that they give. It's really just the XP and gear, I guess, that you get from doing that, but pretty cool nonetheless. You also have the safe spots have really cool parkour ideas and stuff like that, but the side content is pretty good. It's not bloated, which I was afraid of. I thought there was going to be a lot of it and a lot of very tedious things to go and do, but I like the side content. There was enough of it where it felt good to go and do all of it. I didn't end up doing everything. I did all the substations in my playthrough. I think I still have a couple of side quests to go and do, a couple of safe spots to go and find, but for the most part, side content pretty solid in Dying Light the Beast. Visuals and performance. I was really surprised by the visuals in this game. Game looks great. I mean, there's a lot of different environments, when you come down to it, you have Old Town and the kind of old architectural atmosphere that gives off looks great. But then you have the outside of the map when you go into nature, and Castor Woods also looks great. Visuals, I thought the game did a very good job. Character models look pretty good. Enemy designs look great. Already talked and touched on gore and the detail with the combat earlier, with like the weapons breaking and like, you know, the difference between hitting an enemy with a baseball bat and hitting an enemy with like an axe, the blunt versus bladed weapon. Visuals in Dying Light the Beast were pretty good, and also performance was one thing that I was surprised. The game ran really well. I had a couple of hiccups, but for the most part throughout my playthrough I was getting very strong performance, very rare dips. It would always stay in that zone that I'm looking for. I think for me, I usually like to try to run games on medium. I want to get the balance of graphics and also performance. I don't usually like to run games on high because I really prefer performance, but I do want that graphic quality. So I think in this game I was getting anywhere from 100 to 120 frames. Sometimes I would dip into the 85 to 90 range, but I would never dip anywhere below that. Like I said, a couple of hiccups, but for the most part performance was something that I was very impressed with. Even when the game got super busy with a lot of zombies and a lot of stuff happening, and combat, performance was holding up very, very well. So that is something that I want to give props to the developers for. This game is very well optimized. The visuals go alongside that. The game looks great and does a great job of differentiating the different environments and locations. But yeah, I don't really have any complaints when it comes to visuals and performance. To me, I think the most surprising part about Dying Light the Beast, there's two things that I'll talk about the next one in a minute, is the soundtrack. I think this soundtrack is very, very well done. It's very good. And the composer, who has done a lot of different compositions, he did Dying Light 2. He did earlier this year one of my favorite soundtracks of the year, being South of Midnight. It's Olivier Deriviere, and I probably butchered that. I butchered it in the review I did on South of Midnight. He's also done the Plague Tale games, so he's building up this catalog of compositions, and he did a great job in this game with the main theme kind of remix that you hear a lot throughout the game, and hear different versions of that. And boss fights, you hear this epic music, and the music hits in these moments that you don't really expect it to, and it's a nice mix of kind of heavy synth stuff, but also some acoustic guitar, light acoustic guitar. The soundtrack in Dying Light the Beast, I think very underrated, and could be something that you might watch out for later this year in terms of people giving credit to soundtracks. I want to give credit to this soundtrack because I did not come in expecting the music to be as good as it was, but it definitely exceeded expectations, and there were some great moments in the soundtrack. I'll play a couple of examples right here. And last, I want to touch on story. I said the soundtrack was one of the most surprising parts of the game, and I think story goes right along with it, because I was coming into Dying Light the Beast not really expecting a great story. I was maybe expecting we get a solid to good story, but I was just really hoping we wouldn't get another bad story like Dying Light 2, because I don't think Dying Light's really known for great stories. That might be a hot take, but I wasn't a fan of 2. Dying Light 1 had a solid story with pretty solid characters, but nothing crazy. But I think Dying Light the Beast, especially if you're a Dying Light fan and you've played the first 2 games, has a great story that I did not expect out of this game, but it has a lot of moments that, especially if you're a Dying Light fan. If you're not a Dying Light fan, I'm not really sure how this story is going to hit. I'm playing from the perspective of someone who's played the first 2 games, knows these characters, and especially bringing back Kyle Crane as the main protagonist was a great move, because I wasn't really a big fan of Dying Light 2's protagonist, Aiden Caldwell, but bringing back Kyle Crane, I like him more as a protagonist. There's some questionable dialogue in this game, and the writing is, kind of here and there, but I think they do a great job of making Kyle Crane a funny and super sarcastic protagonist, and there's some cool dialogue moments that kind of represent that and show that from his perspective.
Hey, open up! It's all clear out here. Says the guy who just saved your collective asses!
Hands where I can see him!
Whoa, 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 hold it, I'm a good guy.
Prove it.
The name's Kyle, your friend sent me. I'm here to help.
And what if I don't believe you?
Well, you could shoot me, but then I wouldn't be able to help you.
Fix it! Fuck that. I'm not going down there. They would tear me apart.
How about I try? We can stay on the radio and you can guide me through.
Guide you through? Ha! Something blew up down there. Half the building is flooded. What kind of idiot are you?
Just the kind of idiot that'll kick your ass if you don't adjust your goddamn attitude.
Fine.
Hey man, something's come up.
In front of your own...
What's up?
Something's troubling me.
Just like, it is something, we are face to face, so like, yeah, I can see that. What's going on?
Not sure every sample will contain the correct protein. So, just to be sure, we are going to need 3. Each from a different creature.
You got any more levels of difficulty, Doc? Like, should I do it blindfolded? How about backwards?
Forwards is fine.
All right, any idea how I can find the medication storage room?
Yeah. Look for a sign that says medication storage.
Wow. Lydia wasn't kidding. You really are a genius.
So with Kyle Crane coming back, I'll give you a short kind of basic plot premise. He comes back after his transformation. It kind of follows the events of the DLC from Dying Light 1, The Following, and he is tortured by a villain called the Baron. Now the Baron, if I give you a quick kind of brief on him, I think, is he a bad villain? No. There are some moments, especially there's a cutscene near the very end of the game, which I'm not going to spoil, where he shines so much, and I wish he had more screen presence. That's the problem with the Baron, I think, is he's a pretty basic villain, but when he's on the screen, especially in that last scene, he kind of takes the scene over, and he does a great job. He just needs more screen presence, and it's kind of a missed opportunity. The Baron could have been such a great villain, and he just wasn't given enough screen time. So getting back to it, Crane escapes his kind of torture and torment from the Baron, and now he just wants revenge. This is a story about revenge. You'll meet characters along the way, and like I said with the side characters, they're pretty solid characters. There's a lot of cool ideas in this story from the characters that you meet. The missions can be pretty kind of safe and straightforward, but are some really cool missions that kind of branch out and they feel pretty unique. Because the story goes from your kind of story progression with a lot of the characters, but then half of the story is just you building up your beast skill tree and that progression. That goes along with the story. Like I said, with the progression, you build up your beast skills through playing through the main story, and at the end of the main story you'll have enough to where you'll get all of the skills from that tree. So I guess the beast missions, they're pretty straightforward. It's Olivier, one of your side characters, or I guess main characters, goes and tells you where the location of a chimera is. You go and kill it, you get points. That's a main story mission. There's a couple of those. Those, were pretty safe. Nothing really crazy going on there. But the other missions that take you and put you in different situations, give you some pretty solid characters to meet. I think the story in Dying Light the Beast, if you're not a Dying Light fan, I'm really interested to see what your perspective is. Let me know down in the comments if you played through the game. This is the first time you've played Dying Light. What you think of the story. I think it could be a solid story if you're not a Dying Light fan or haven't played the first two games. But if you are a Dying Light fan, you have played 1 and 2, at least from my perspective, I really enjoyed the story. Very surprising for me, as Kyle Crane comes back. He does a pretty good job of being the main protagonist, meets some pretty solid characters, and goes on a revenge journey that kind of, I would say, rewards the players who have played the first and second game. I don't think you need to play the second game in order to get some enjoyment out of this story, but it would definitely help. I would say definitely play the first game, but you could skip 2 and play this game and I think you'd be fine. But playing 2 would definitely give you some more enjoyment, but you don't have to play it. I would definitely say play 1, then play the Beast. But as a standalone story, I think it's pretty solid. But from the perspective of playing Dying Light 1 and 2 and having those stories kind of come in to play, it's a great story that I was very surprised with. So what is my verdict on Dying Light the Beast? I didn't get into time play or anything like that like I probably should have with the story. It took me 19.5 hours to get through the story. That was doing a lot of side content. I think you could probably get through the main story of this game probably within like 10 to 12 hours if you wanted to mainline it, but I was doing a lot of side content to the point where after that 19.5 hours, I played for about 2 hours more, ended up at 21.5 hours, and hit the max rank. There's still a couple side quests, still a couple of save spots I could go and find, but for the most part, if you're going for the 100%, there's a lot of collectibles, I think, at least a pretty good amount of collectibles that you could go and find. But if you're just wanting to hit max rank, do all the side quests and everything, you're probably looking at like 25 hours. Main story, it took me 19.5, but I was doing a lot of the side content. So this game is going for $60, so it's a little bit lower than what your normal full price game is. It kind of sees that it's not quite there in terms of like a Dying Light 1 and 2 with how long the stories are and how much there is to do. It's a more condensed version of a Dying Light game. I'd say if you're a Dying Light fan, $60, I would definitely do it. If you are a Dying Light fan that's been on the fence about getting this new game, you're not sure if this DLC that was turned into a standalone game is going to be even worth it, if it's just going to be filler content, I'd say if you're a Dying Light fan, go for it. $60. You know that with a Techland Dying Light game, they're going to add more to it. They're going to do all these events and add side quests, and you're going to get your money's worth out of this just from the live service that they do with the game and the amount of content that they're going to add to it, like they have with Dying Light 1 and 2 and how they support their Dying Light games. If you're someone who's not a Dying Light fan, but you're looking for a really good zombies game that's got great gameplay, great parkour, and a pretty solid story, it's a condensed experience, you're not going to feel bloat with this game, I would say $60, I would do it. Now, if you're on the fence, I would definitely say, maybe wait for a sale, $40, $50, I would do it. But I would say with the $60, I think it's worth it with Dying Light the Beast. I was definitely impressed with what I played. I liked a lot of what I played, and especially if you don't know what Dying Light is about, the developer is going to support this game a very good amount. So even if you pay your $60, you get through the game pretty quick. Maybe you put 20-25 hours into it and you want to put it down, you're probably going to come back because they're going to add a lot of stuff to it, and that's kind of what this game is known for, what this series is known for, is they have a great product at launch. Dying Light 2 was a little iffy with that, but they're going to build on it. They're going to fix things that need to be addressed. They've already fixed one thing that I was going to complain about in this video, but they already, if they haven't fixed it, are going to fix it, and they know it's an issue with that being the zombie grabbing. I feel like that was a really bad issue within the first couple of days that I was playing. It happened way too much, and I didn't really notice it towards the end of my playthrough, so they either fixed it, but I definitely know that they know it was an issue and they were going to address it. So they're very good about feedback, listening to the community, and adding content in. So to kind of sum up my verdict, if you're a Dying Light fan, definitely do it. $60, it is worth it. You're getting the game for a little bit less than full price. It's a more condensed experience, but I think you're going to get your money's worth. If you're someone who's not a Dying Light fan, I would still do it for the $60. I would definitely still do it if you're looking for a zombies game to scratch that itch that's got great gameplay and parkour, solid story, good open world that doesn't feel bloated. But I will say, if you want to wait for it on sale, $40-50, you know, maybe in a month or two it'll probably be down to that. I'd say it's a pretty good idea too. There's a lot of games coming out, but if you're looking for that game that's going to scratch that zombie itch, Dying Light the Beast is one of the best zombie games to come out this year. So that is going to do it for my Dying Light the Beast review. Thank you guys for watching, hanging out, talking about Dying Light the Beast. What do you think about the game? Have you played it? Are you thinking about getting it? Let me know down in the comments your thoughts on the game. Good, bad, ugly, whatever you want to say. Let's have a discussion down there in the comments. I had a great time with the game. I really enjoyed it. Was not expecting to like it as much as I did, but coming out of it, I'm definitely glad that I bought it for full price, and I'm definitely glad with the experience I got for the money. So that's going to do it. Thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for more videos coming down the line, and I'll talk to you later.